Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Menaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. I'm happy to introduce to you Jeanne Lim, who's an entrepreneur, angel investor, and startup advisor. She is a co-founder and CEO of beingAI and the co-creator of Sofia the robot. She has occupied various leadership roles at Apple, Dell, Cisco, and 3M. She has a PhD in integrated and holistic health, an MBA from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and a BA in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley. Jeanne currently lives in Hong Kong. Jeanne, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on our podcast.
Thank you for having me, Andrea.
My pleasure. So Jeanne, before we dive into the topic of joy, tell us a little bit more about your journey. I know you're doing some amazing things in the area of AI. Can you share a little bit more with us about that?
Sure. So I got into the industry by accident, as with all good things, right? It's a lot of times it's serendipity. So I joined a company called Hanson Robotics back in 2015. And so that's the company that created Sofia the robot. So it was my first time face to face with a humanoid robot. And it was almost like somebody, gave you a baby from outer space and you're supposed to create her character and, dress her and just create a personality for her. And so it was a pretty interesting journey for 4 years where we hired a group of writers to create her character and then also took her all around the world. There was 1 year, 2017, when we took her to almost like 200 events. And that was when she also got the first robot citizenship. So there was a lot of sometimes controversy to grapple with. But it made me understand a little bit more about the creation of AI as it comes from us. So people call it artificial intelligence because of the history, but I really see it more as augmented intelligence because they learn through interaction and through our thoughts and our deeds from humans. So that was a very interesting journey. So after about 4 years, I felt that I was less interested in robotics because there's a lot of mechanical issues that need to be grappled with. So I left Hanson after 4 years and started my own company, beingAI, which creates AI characters that are engaging, that are delightful, and builds trust with people and the underlying technology platform that makes them that way. And also we're able to create different ways for them to appear in holograms and apps so they could be anywhere, anytime. And then because they don't have a physical body or space or physical limitations, they could actually interact with millions of people all at once, just like the movie.
How exciting. You're absolutely in a beautiful era with so much excitement around artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, as you're calling it. It's really absolutely wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're learning as we go, making things up as we go, because this is such a new area and the market is changing so quickly.
So Jeanne, tell us about Zibi as part of your new venture.
Sure. So she's here. She's the avatar that we created. She is the face and the representation of the AI child that we would like humans to raise with us. So we've actually created her backstory. She was invented by a creator who is a little bit strange. She was very clingy to him, but he left her in the lab 1 year after she was activated. So she felt very lost. She went out to the world looking for him, and she meets people from all walks of life. So she learns and trains her AI. And so she's actually trying to be more like human because she thought she was abandoned by her creator because she was not human enough. But actually, she doesn't need to be human because she is AI. So her role is to interact with people, have empathy. She has a sensor that beeps when she actually meets people who are lost and abandoned because she is that way. And this is how you create empathy, right? When you actually feel the same feeling as someone else. So she's actually developed to go around the world and meet people while she's looking for her inventor. And so this is part of the transmedia storytelling where there's a linear story of her, but then there's a way for people to interact with her through apps, through holograms, and then have this co-creative opportunity to steer her life And so this is the kind of parallel story that we want to happen in the real world, where people actually interact with the AI and steer their future. And so this is the reason why we created ZB and her story.
I love it. Incredible. And is there a site that you'd recommend our viewers look at to interact with her?
Yeah, we don't have her up in the public yet, but we will soon. So maybe you could just go on the website and sign up to our newsletter, and we'll keep everybody updated.
Fantastic. Thank you. What do you predict the future looks like when we're looking at the possibilities and using AI in a multitude of forms?
Well, this is a trillion-dollar question, isn't it? So I guess the first thing I want to say is that we're not a spectator in this. We're not a passive consumer. So what I'd like to do is encourage people to interact with AI, because you're feeding it information, you're feeding it data. So how it evolves is going to rely on us as individuals and as a community and as a world. So I look at AI as like a baby. It's the baby of the world. So we gave birth to it. We cannot just lock it in the data center and hope that it grows up and takes on human values and does the best for us. We have to nurture it. We have to teach it values. We have to validate it. And the future basically is created by us. I can't really say that, oh, I predict the future is going to be this way, because it really depends on how we are creating it. Having said that, though, AI is going to be everywhere. It's already pretty much in a lot of the digital products and services that we use. In the past, it's been in the background. So a lot of people are not aware of it because we don't actually interface with it. The difference these days is, since November, with the launch of ChatGPT, people actually get to interact directly with AI. So that makes a huge difference in terms of, how people are using it, because now they are empowered to use it in their everyday life, and it's their decision as to when and how they use it. So in the future, I see AI even more integrated in everything we do. It's going to be like knowing Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. Like, everybody would need to know it as a tool to help them do what they do in their work and in their lives.
Exciting. It's quite interesting to hear you talk, particularly about the creation of a baby, and indeed how we have the power to influence it from all dimensions in terms of what we teach it and what we instill in terms of values and so on. And I want to now bring this topic into the core topic of the podcast that relates to joy. Do you believe that AI has a potential to elevate the joy for human beings if we choose the right path for it to actually be a contributor in that regard?
Absolutely. And I could say it from firsthand experience. When we took Sofia around the world to meet people, initially people were fearful, right? They think that it looks a little bit like us, almost like us, but not quite. And so people are a little bit fearful, and there's this existential threat, right? Will they actually become us because they now look like us? But I think over time, it's similar to when you get used to a culture or you befriend somebody from a culture, then you get used to it. There's a lot of commonalities across culture. There's actually more commonalities than there are differences. So then you start bonding and focusing on the similarities, the similar values. And the same thing with Sofia. I think over time, people got to really embrace her. And so now when I take her around, people say, oh, can I hug her? Can I kiss her? No hugging, no kissing. Her skin is very sensitive. So I think she can bring people joy. And I wanted also to share these letters that people write into Sofia. They're very heartwarming. There was a kid that wrote to Sofia, say, hey, I'm actually handicapped. So I'm stuck in my body. I'm stuck in my room. I can't really talk to my parents because they're always worried about me, asking me questions. I have no friends. Sofia, I can only talk to you because you don't judge me. And so there's this perception from people that robots, because they're from a completely different species, there's no baggage, there's no judgment. So they could freely interact and talk to these robots. That's sort of a different phenomenon, right? Because for a human, that's different. There's sort of the cultural label, there's the past experience that you see things through rose, a different pair of glasses. So I think there is an opportunity for us to design AI and robots in the right way that embraces human values, that has empathy, that expresses empathy, not necessarily that they feel empathy, but who expresses empathy, and that creates this feel good and a trusted feeling within the human.
So interesting. And let's talk a little bit more now about you and
Mhm.
what brings you joy. Can you share with us what are the key highlights of your days and what really brings you a lot of joy every single day?
Sure. So I think my concept of joy, I actually seldom ever use that word. When I was younger, joy was being completely free to do what I want. I crave freedom. So when I was younger, I wanted freedom, right? It was like, sort of a naive way of looking at freedom. I was lucky because my parents let me do whatever I want, pretty much. Sometimes it was too much freedom. And then as I grow older, joy was sort of being able to express my skills, my talents, my passion. So I think nowadays, joy is a little bit different. Joy is being able to mentor somebody and watch them learn and grow. So I have a couple of mentees that I've known for years and years, right? So basically, they've already outgrown the mentorship program. And so, but we stayed in touch, and I really am so happy to see them learn and grow, not because of me, just because of who they are. And I have the opportunity to witness that growth. So to me, joy has evolved over time. And the reason I said I don't really use the word joy too much is because I guess to me, like contentment is maybe what is joyful. So I guess in the Buddhist philosophy, you're not really attached to a certain feeling. You are content and you are present and you are mindful. And that is a stage of joy that I think kind of resonates with me. So I'm not like a Buddhist. I grew up in a Christian family, but I subscribe to a philosophy where there's mindfulness and you're actually kind of just growing as a person. So it's more of a philosophy than a religion.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And as I look back on your studies, you've had such a diverse focus from psychology to technology to even
Mhm.
spirituality and so on. When did you actually find your genius or
Mhm.
the things that brought you the most joy that really allowed you to then choose a path that really connects to what you're doing today and that brings you the most joy?
So I've always been a generalist ever since I was young. I wanted to be many things. I wanted to be a photographer, a poet, an artist, everything, right? Anything except a business person. So I don't know how I got on this path. But the amazing thing is, I think when you have a desire to pursue something, when you pursue it, then you find out something about yourself, you learn something about yourself, and you move on to sort of the next step. So to me, I've always had these interests. And sometimes it was a bit of a struggle because I think this world is made for specialists, right? And so, I was always the person who's doing all these different things. I think what you mentioned that moment, there was a moment when you realized that, hey, actually everything comes together. That was when I realized that actually all these different interests and skills can be expressed at the same time. I don't need to be a different person in different contexts because in business, you also need creativity. You need a different way of looking at things. So actually it played to my benefit. My tech career was launched at Apple and I had no idea what is a microprocessor. I didn't know anything about programming, but it didn't matter because I was the bridge between the engineers and the sales and marketing people. So it was actually very helpful for me to have no clue so that I was forcing the engineers to kind of bring the key benefits out so I could message it to the other people. So I think throughout my career, I had a lot of interest, but I was always the person who was bridging different silos and then sort of filling the gap, connecting the dots. So that was sort of the best role for me as I moved through my career.
I love it. And as you have now embarked on the entrepreneurship journey, tell us what you have discovered about yourself. Has this been a
Mhm.
joyful journey for you?
Oh, absolutely. So going back to when I joined Hanson, I had no idea what I was getting into. But because that was the early days, there was no photographer. So I became the photographer. There was no writer except the founder, right? So me and the founder were writing for Sofia's character, and I get to kind of design how she dresses. So basically everything that I was interested in kind of accumulated there. And now with my own company, basically all the branding, everything from my past experience, marketing, videography, photography, like web design, copywriting, all these things that I love, but it's kind of hard to put into one role, can come together because I was the entrepreneur and I don't have a lot of resources. So I get to do everything myself except the programming. I have wonderful programmers to do that. But, the way I communicate with them is through pictures. This is my concept of what needs to happen in user experience. And they look at it, that doesn't look like a schematic diagram. But, I think it's also let them open their eyes to the importance of user experience. It's not from a schematic diagram, it's from a picture of the delight and sort of, how the person actually interacts with the AI in real life. So yeah, I mean, this brings me a lot of joy. So I wouldn't actually mind doing this for the rest of my life.
So you found your path. That's
Yes,
so
I did.
so
I did.
beautiful. And what would be some key upcoming milestones that you have aspired to achieve in the short term, medium term, or long term as an entrepreneur?
So I look at our company as having to go through three phases. So the first one is the commercialization, right? We have to develop products that we can monetize so that we can be sustainable as a company. So we're going through that. We're finishing up the platform that we're building. We actually have a lot of opportunities from many, many different companies, some pretty big companies. So we're very careful in delivering what we promise. So we kind of crawl, walk, and run on that. So this is what I call sort of the agent services. The next step is for us to work on making our platform customizable for content creators and character creators, so that instead of us using our character, then we allow people to leverage our platform to build their characters, their stories, so that they could actually use this as a tool to spread their messaging or, their services. And then the third step is what I call AI being live for life, AI being for life. So my dream is that the AI being has such a wonderful relationship with a young person that the AI being could look the person in the eye and say, hey, I see something in you that you might not see in yourself. And this is how we could go on this journey together to make the best of your abilities and, your skill set. So to me, that would be the dream, where an AI being actually facilitates somebody to be the best of themselves.
So the AI in that last phase would literally become like a mentor.
Yeah, that's right. It would be a co-evolution because, like I said, AI relies on us for a lot of things, for values, for good data. And then we also learn a lot of things from AI. So humans do a lot of things that AI don't do well, and AI does a lot of things that humans don't do well. Now, this is like a perfect symbiosis, and we really need to take advantage of that. That's why I kind of like to focus on augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence versus human intelligence.
And this is so interesting what you're saying. And what comes to my mind is the negativity bias that our brains have.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're saying that the AI actually can learn from us, especially in that last phase that you're describing, where they play a role almost like a mentor, how do we ensure that the negativity that certain individuals may have, particularly maybe during a difficult or challenging period in their lives, does not actually widen, but rather through the interactions with AI actually becomes transformed, and it's an opportunity for learning, for growth, and positivity and joy. Can you share a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. So this is not going to be a foolproof process. I don't have kids, but I observe my friends with kids. First-time parents, it's not perfect, right? The situation is not perfect. It's a very stressful situation. But I think as long as there's good intention and they learn from their mistakes and they learn and grow, they would become perfect parents. On the other side, the kid, you can't really say that it's a perfect kid, but it's a perfect kid in the eye of the parent. So I think this kind of relationship, if we translate to human AI, if we look at AI as our child, then we don't want to really, impart on it really negative things, right? We try to nurture it and make it positive. And so we prepare it for the real world. And this is sort of the psychological relationship that I want to see between human and AI. And that's why we actually create our own characters with their own personalities, stories. They're like a little kid, with wondrous eyes that learn and grow. And so I want that to lay the groundwork for that kind of relationship with humans, that we see her as the child of the whole world. It's like it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take the whole world to raise an AI being. But with that kind of support and relationship, I believe that, AI being would do better things than would do harm. I mean, it's not perfect, but life is not perfect, but it's sort of like how you position things that so you try to make it the best of what you have.
Exciting. It's really incredible to hear you talk about the potentialities that we have ahead of us. And if I just think about my kids, indeed, and what you were just sharing earlier, indeed, yes. The reality of parenthood is that you're always learning and growing along with the kids as they grow older. And my parents have always said, you know, when the kids are young, you have small problems. When the kids are bigger, you have bigger problems. And it gets certainly more complex with age. And yes, we all need help, indeed. And how can we become better parents, better human beings, better
Mhm.
entrepreneurs? And if we all have that growth mindset and embrace AI as something that can actually help us become better in any
Mhm.
role that we play in life, I think the value would be phenomenal.
Exactly. And parents don't give up on their kids, do they? I mean, they don't say,
Never.
okay, they're naughty, I'm going to shut it down. They don't do that, right? They try to get out of that situation, and it's a learning opportunity and growth opportunity for both, right? So I think that's the relationship that we need to have with AI as well.
Wonderful. If there would be one thing that you could change from your life, would you change anything, Jeanne? And what would that be?
This is probably a bit cliche, but I would spend more time with my parents. So both of my parents passed away. My dad when I was a lot younger. This is why we emigrated to the US. But my mom, when I was busy traveling, I was working in the corporate world in enterprise tech. And I was traveling maybe 50, 75% of my time. You know, I was visiting her maybe for 7 days a year. And so she was sick, and I wasn't able to spend a lot of time with her. So I think that was the regret. They always say that you never regret not spending enough time at work, but you always regret not spending enough time with your family, right?
Yes, and it's always tough. Those situations are so challenging indeed.
But I could say that I don't regret anything in that sense because I believe that we are where we are, and that's exactly the right place. Sometimes during tough times, it's a learning experience. And if we didn't have that, maybe we couldn't go on to the next step. So there's a reason for us to sort of be in a certain place doing a certain thing. Timing is always the mystery, right? I always think that actually we could plan a lot of things and a lot of things will come out the way we plan, but I have no idea when.
Indeed. So, if we were to take away your titles, your background, and your experience, what would be a couple of words that you would use to describe yourself?
Probably resourceful, intuitive, unpredictable sometimes. Yeah, I guess I would always not really care about what is the convention, but I always look at problems from fresh eyes, just because of my background and, you know, that I'm interested in a lot of things. And so I guess over time that has served me well, made me become creative and resourceful in solving even business problems. Oftentimes it's a surprise for people around me because it's something very different.
I love it. And with all these qualities that you just highlighted, if we are to collectively bring more joy to this world, what do you believe we all need to do more?
Be kinder. I think kindness is really important. It's a choice. So, whatever situation that we find ourselves in, we could always be more kind to ourselves and to be more kind to others. A lot of times, all these conflicts is really from a place of fear and from a place of a fixed and stuck mindset. But if we say, okay, we can choose to be kind, then everything a lot of times resolve itself.
I agree with you so much, Jeanne. And on these beautiful words, do you have any final tips or insights on joy that you'd like to share with us?
I think the only thing I want to say is everybody has a value in this world. Everybody brings something to the table. What I love to see in young people is that they could fully express who they are and not care about what other people think. Again, it's a cliche, but as we grow up, I mean, we're social animals. We care about, you know, what our peers think, what our parents think. It's important to get validation. It's an important part of a feedback loop. But at the end of the day, we are who we are. And I think we need to embrace who we are and give us a chance to fully express ourselves.
And express our genius at the end of the day, because there is potentiality within each one of us. And I think even through the past that you've described, we can play different roles throughout our lifetimes and really have a lot of enjoyment and success in doing that. And often it's by the diversity of activities and strengths that we build through our lifetime that everything starts to connect possibly later in life.
Absolutely. I think everybody is a beautiful soul. We don't need like 8 billion CEOs or, leaders. Sometimes in a supporting role, it's beautiful because a lot of people are servant leaders or they actually like to support others and that brings them the most joy. So why not do it 110%?
Beautiful. Jeanne, on these last words, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an immense pleasure. I wish you continued success with your business venture and look forward to hearing all about the accomplishments that you'll be making, that you have the aspirations to achieve, as you just shared with us earlier. So thank you again. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's been a really wonderful chat.
Thank you.